Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Hungry Bleak podcast. I am your host, Antonio Pomares, and all right, this is going to be a really cool one. I think I say it every episode though, but it is because they're all cool. One time I'm going to have somebody on there who's not cool. Then again, I don't know anybody who's not cool, so this is going to be a bit of a stretch. I'm going to try my best with that one. So I hope you're having a great day. I hope the week has been well. I hope the weather's good wherever you're at, but your day is about to get even better. So I don't even know how to give this person a proper introduction. All I'm going to say is I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. The writer of Mose, M to the Osley. That was horrible. But you know I'm going to do something corny. You know I'm going to do something stupid. That's what I do. So folks, please give a huge applause at home. Don't make it too loud so your neighbors aren't upset. Robert Guillory.
Hey, how's it going?
All right. How are you doing today?
Doing all right, man. Thanks for having me.
No problem. In the back of my head, I was doing backflips. Guillory. And then I thought I was just going to blurt something out awkward. I was like, oh.
It wouldn't be the first time, so you're good.
No
I brace myself. I brace myself every time.
Well, I think I'm overly sensitive because of my name, like my full name. Mm-hmm. And I've heard it said, and I'm just sitting there like, I guess, yeah, okay. We'll just, and then when I step up, I say my name again to reintroduce myself. And then I go, yeah, just kind of retcon the whole thing that you just did. I won't scold you on it. You do what you do. Cool.
Yeah. I only feel comfortable around people with unpronounceable last names. I never feel like Smith. I don't like Smiths. So it has to be something really, really like my collaborator on Mosley. His last name is Lotfi, Lotfi, and people destroy it every single time. And I know how that feels. Like I've been there.
I don't think I destroyed it, but I think I definitely maimed it once when I was saying it out loud because it was, and I was like, okay. And I said it out loud and I was like, that doesn't sound right. But it's just in my head. I think you looking at it and the way it sounds coming out, I think you just naturally do it. But yeah, that's actually a very good tip because I'm thinking I don't know any Joneses or Smiths or I don't think I do. And that's actually a very good policy. You can't trust that. Can't trust you if you haven't had that type of hardship where you're like, go ahead, say the name. The teacher's like, and are you? And you go, you just sitting there waiting for them to say your name. Truly, but you have had an incredible career in comics and art, writing, everything. Your style is very distinctive. I love your style. Your style of art is so distinctive. Like when I see your name, I automatically think Chew. I mean, obviously, automatically thinking of that. How did you get into comics and writing and art?
Well, I mean, it was just something I naturally gravitated to. I mean, I have very very clear memories of being really young, maybe 3 or 4 probably, and just kind of scribbling in the back of, or and actually like we used to have like the little golden books and that sort of thing, the kids books, and I would just scribble on the inside covers of that stuff. And I have memories of being in kindergarten and just kind of scribbling all over the place. And my mom says that I drew, and I sort of have half of a memory of doing this when I was like 2-ish. I remember doing like a flip book. Like I was already thinking sequentially, and it was just about a bear. Like it was a bear going from one side of an index card to the other. And so I've always been visual. I've always thought sequentially. And, I always did it in my free time. And I had little like glimpses that I might have actually been pretty good at it pretty young. I remember being in the first grade and it was a Christmas party we were having and, there was an art contest. They gave you some kind of coloring sheet and you had to go do it. And I ended up winning and I wasn't even trying really. They're like, oh yeah, here you go. I was like, oh wow, all right, cool. And they ended up giving me some kind of like, I still, it's funny the things that you remember. I remember winning. It was like a plush zebra that was not like I was like, who wants this? I'm in the first grade. This makes no sense. So like just from there, I had like lots of little glimpses. And in the fourth grade, I started buying. This was the early '90s, so this is Image Comics is coming into being. Rob Liefeld, all those guys are kind of coming, they're coming to the forefront. Death of Superman, all this stuff's going on. And around this time, I decided to start collecting comics, because I had two uncles who were both. I always say they're like the prototypical comic book geek. This is in the '80s, and
Mhm.
they had been collecting comics since the '60s, so they had an amazing collection. They had tons of original Spider-Mans and Chris Claremont X-Men, just the
Wow.
really good stuff. And every time I go over to their houses, they let me go in their closet and pull out this big suitcase full of comics. And I couldn't even read yet, and I would just go through all this stuff. George Perez, Teen Titans,
Mhm.
just going through all this stuff, and I loved it. But at some point, I decided, you know what, I want to start getting my own collection. So I started, every week going to the comic shop, picking stuff up, and kind of hooked up with other comic book geeks. Like this was the first time, like I had two buddies in my class that were actually in the comics. It's like, holy crap, there's other people. There's other people. So we started like hooking up, and like at some point I had this crazy idea of, what if I just draw a comic book? I just went home from school, and this is funny. I have no memories of ever doing homework, but I was a good student. I was an honor roll student, but I have no memory of ever doing homework ever. I don't know what's going on. But I clearly remember going home one day and deciding to draw a comic book. And I just remember going in my room, pulling out the first thing I could find, which was like pink construction paper.
Mhm.
I
All
just
right.
took it, folded it, stapled it, and drew in ballpoint pen and crayon a comic. And it just it just bit me immediately. It's like, holy crap, like this is kind of awesome. And from there, like I went through like a couple summers of just staying home and just drawing comics. Now every day a different comic, boom, 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 and it started changing how I was thinking. Like I realized now I was kind of setting deadlines for myself at a really young age. Like I wasn't getting paid
Mhm.
for this stuff. I had no editor, but I remember going to my grandparents' house and be like, ah, man, I got to finish that comic today, man. I'm like 11. I'm 11 and I'm already thinking about, I'm behind on a deadline. Like there's nothing, no one's waiting
Mhm.
for this. This is just me. To this day, I still have. I ended up. I still. It was always the same format. Eventually, it's like loose leaf paper or something. I would fold it, staple it, make a comic out of it, and I still have an old expanding file that has all that old stuff that I did between ages. This is probably age 9 until 13 or 14, and I still have some that are incomplete and that I never drew on. So I had like, and part of me, I have to be honest with you, part of me is still like, man, I never got to that. Like, I never, like crap, like I never finished that.
Longest
Um,
deadline ever in comics, probably.
yeah, it's been 30 years. Um, like Battle Chasers is even coming out faster than this, but
Jeez. Woo.
sorry, I have to go there. I have
No,
to go
no.
there.
The minute I
Um,
said it, I was like, "Oh man, you kind of set that up." Yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen after this, man. You're
right,
done.
right, right. So, but yeah, but it was always just me having fun, and and like I said, I'm from Louisiana, and this is pre-internet. This is before Comic Cons are
Mhm.
really blowing up the way they are now. So we didn't have exposure to how you break into comics. So I had no idea how you do this. I just thought, you know, I remember maybe once there was an ad in DC comic or in a Marvel comic that said they were open to submissions, and you could basically mail your stuff there, and maybe you'll hear back. And that's all I knew. So you know, college, I'm getting into college, and I'm all in on the art thing. It's just a question of where am I going to go. And I ended up I was going to go to an art institute, because of Louisiana, there's one in Houston. I was going to go there. My mom talked me out of it because she said, well, you're not just an artist, you're a writer as well. So,
Mm.
I would hate for you to kind of focus on this one thing and let this other thing die. And she was correct. So I ended up going to my university, University of Louisiana in Lafayette, my hometown. And around that time, I decided, I think I'm going to look into this comic thing because again, the internet, it's 2000, so the internet's a thing,
Right.
and there's just all this information out there of like, oh, so this is how you break into comics. Like people are already starting to do, lists of tips of how to break into comics. So I thought, crap, like there it is. This is everything I've been looking for. So I started kind of looking at what I liked, and as far as comics go. And I realized at some point, though I had grown up with Marvel and DC comics, I sucked at drawing Marvel and DC style. Like I was never gonna make it, because as much as, I had, the Stan Lee, John Buscema, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. Like I had all that stuff, and I tried my heart out to do it, and it just wasn't me. So at some point, I started thinking, and I thought, well, I love animation. I'm probably as influenced by animation as comics. So I started thinking about Hanna-Barbera, um, Chuck Jones. I started thinking about that kind of style, and I started thinking maybe I could like go more for that, because that seems more fun than drawing photorealism.
Mm-hmm.
It seems more expressive, and I'm better at it. So I started leaning into that more, and naturally, it just started coming. It's just everything started making sense, and from there, I started developing the fundamentals of everything, of storytelling, of composing a page, everything. And like I said, the internet was in, so I was able to connect with other communities, message boards, and that sort of thing. MySpace was a thing back
Right.
then. So I used MySpace like crazy. I mean, that I didn't have a website yet, because websites were like a big deal back then. So I had no website, but MySpace was my website, and it kind of just went from there. I one thing kind of leads to another. When you start building momentum, and I was building momentum. I hadn't published anything at that point, but I was building a steady portfolio. I had started working at my university's school paper, so I was the head staff cartoonist. So I had weekly deadlines every week. So I was learning just boom, 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 and my major was in painting, because there wasn't like an illustration major or anything like that.
Right.
So I was just hustling, and I had worked out early in my college career that the plan was, okay, so here's what I'll do. I will work my ass off, create all this work, make new portfolios every 6 months. Every 6 months, I'm going to go to a comic convention. So we started going to conventions over in Texas, because Texas was where everything was. I mean, it was Texas. We did drive once to Long Beach, California from Louisiana, which was
Wow.
intense. That's a whole other story. But yeah, we were grinding. So I was, and then on top of that, I was in message boards every week, posting new stuff, networking, getting critiques, that sort of thing. And it just snowballed, from there really.
Mm.
But that's kind of the groundwork of kind of how I got into comics.
That's a great. I love the fact that you saw that it wasn't your style, so you just kind of leaned more into yours, and to even, uh, yeah, I never really thought about it. Yeah, but your style does kind of like feel that way. Yeah, that does. See, now I definitely want to go and watch some of those old cartoons now. See, that's what I, yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm glad I have every streaming service known in the universe to go and do that now. Awesome.
Right, absolutely. Yeah.
That's great. Now, what was the 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 big hit that people know you for is Chew,
Mhm.
which, yeah, that was just a cool. It almost ruined food for me because I love it's in the title again, Hungry Bleak. But I was like, oh wow, if I could eat something and I could think, I was like, oh no, that's not good at all. But it was such a beautiful idea. Like, what inspired Chew?
Well, backstory. So like I said, I was kind of knocking around the indie scene and everything, and there was this writer named John Layman, who had written this book named Puffed at Image in the early 2000s. And it was drawn, the art, it was drawn by a guy named Dave Crosland. And I just gravitated to that book very early in my career. And I followed Layman from there, every book he wrote, I picked it up. And then one day in 2008, I was deciding to make the jump into comics full time. And I thought, let's just go into this. I'd been married a year at the time. We didn't have any kids at the time either. So we just thought, screw it, let's just go do it. And I swear, within 2 weeks of me making that decision, I get an email from John Layman. And I had never met him before. He's like, hey man, I'm John Layman, and I got this comic. I have this comic that basically no one wants to publish. And I'm looking for an artist. And I really like your stuff. You come highly recommended. Maybe we can talk. So I jumped at it. I'm like, crap, this is perfect timing, because I was flying out to San Diego Comic-Con the next day to try to make something happen. and he just hit me literally the day before and offers me this gig. So we ended up hooking up at Comic-Con the next day and talking. And so basically the gist was he had been kicking around the idea of Chew for, years at this point. And he used to be an editor at Wildstorm at DC Comics. And, he had been pitching Chew to them, and they thought it was a really bad idea. They literally told him, don't publish this because it'll ruin your career. Like it'll be the end of your career. And Layman is just, he's very, very, he's the kind of guy that if you tell him not to do a thing, it's just going to fire him up to do the thing. So they told him, don't do this. And he immediately heard, oh, I have to do this now. Like I have to, like, even if like Chew was going to be his like farewell to comics. It was his middle finger to comics initially. And I was just the guy who was trying to, so he was on his way out of comics and I'm just coming into comics. And I'm like, sweet, like, yeah, let's do this. 5 issues, sure. And so the premise for anyone that doesn't know, the premise of Chew is there's a worldwide bird flu. It's killed hundreds of millions of people. And the FDA has basically become like Homeland Security. So they have come in and they've restricted what can be eaten. So poultry is out. You cannot eat poultry anymore. But of course, when you outlaw something, there's a black market. Right. So you can find chicken, but it's going to be illegal speakeasies. So just chicken speakeasies all over the place. People who eat chicken. So the FDA is basically, they're basically enforcing these idiotic laws. They're locking up people for selling chicken. This is stupid. And of course, there's people that believe there was never any bird flu to begin with. The government's hiding something, obviously. And then our main character is a guy named Tony Chew. So Tony Chew is a young FDA agent, and he's also a SIBOpath. So what that means is he gets psychic visions from what he eats. So if he eats a hamburger, he sees and experiences the life of the cow up to its like death, its processing, its packaging, up to the point where he actually put it in his mouth and ate it. So it's a horrible, horrible power. He hates it. And the only thing he can eat that doesn't give him this feeling is beets. So he eats beets all the time, and he's a miserable guy. But he gets enlisted by the FDA to use this ability to solve crimes, which means he ends up eating a lot of horrible, gross things. But of course, along the way, he finds out there is a conspiracy, and the entire comic, which was originally, like I said, going to be 5 issues, ended up being 60 plus issues. And it was just the entire story is following Tony as he is figuring out what the conspiracy is and what's going on. So this is this really offbeat, weird premise, and DC ran away from it like crazy. Everyone was like, don't do this freaking comic, don't do it. But Layman's stubborn, and I'm just trying to make my way in. I'm like, give it to me. Let's do this. So we did it, and it just blows up. It just ended up. It sold out in a couple of days, which wasn't really much of. It wasn't much of an accomplishment to sell it out in 2 days because the sales were so initially low on the first issue. Like no one expected it to do well. Like no one did. Honestly, and it's just me being completely honest. I don't even think Image expected it was going to do well. I think Image was like, nah, we'll just throw it against the wall. We'll see what sticks. And it just stuck, and people really gravitated toward it. And people, it became this word of mouth thing where people were just like, man, did you read Chew? Like this, it's really, really good. I don't know either of the people who made it, but it's really good. And we need to find a copy, but they couldn't find copies anywhere. So it just kind of blew up from there. And from there, it just ended up, winning all the awards in the industry, New York Times bestselling, translated into like a dozen languages worldwide. Like it's done all this crazy stuff. And it's been a crazy blessing. It's basically, like I said, that was the beginning of my career. And Chew was basically like the foundation that I could build my career on top of. Most of the people I know who have had, decent hits in the industry, they kind of struggle for a while, and then eventually maybe they'll get a hit. But I got mine like at the beginning of my career, so which has been a crazy blessing It's been hard at times, but my career, it's paved the way for me to do some really cool stuff and take risks. I think earlier in my career, um, than I would have been able to otherwise.
Yeah, because I mean, for that foundation, and speaking of, that being able, that being your foundation, and for springboarding you to everything else, your latest is Mosley, which is incredibly timely. It's almost like you knew, and you were like, there's going to be a lot of talk about AI, and you know what? I think I need to do something that it was in that film. For people who don't know, Mosley, which is out of Boom Studios,
Mhm.
I absolutely love it. If you want to tell people about this comic, I absolutely love this comic.
Yeah, yeah. So Mosley is it's my summer blockbuster book. It's always, I mean, from the beginning, I knew that I wanted to do something like this because I've
Mhm.
always been a fan of kind of you know I think of movies like Independence Day, just
Mhm.
something that's like a good Will Smith movie, like a
All right,
good
yeah.
yeah, just like a good, like, it's got heart, it's fun. Maybe it's not like the deepest thing in the world, but this is like popcorn. This is July, and it's popcorn, and I'm in the theater. Like, this is what
Yes.
this is. So that's what I wanted Mosley to be. So Mosley is a story of Marvin Mosley. Marvin Mosley is an ex-Marine who's enlisted. He's enlisted in this government program to basically to create artificial intelligence. So he and several other Marines are taken to this secretive compound in the middle of the desert, and they're basically put in a house to live with a robot for a year. Um, and that's the only people they talk to for a year is the robot. And it completely he does it out of the hope that it's going to make the world for his daughter. He has a young daughter. She's a baby at the time when he goes in. He's hoping that it's going to make the world a better place for her. But we jump ahead 30 years, and it actually makes the world horrible. He does help create artificial intelligence, but the artificial intelligence grows up to become what we call the tech gods. So
Mhm.
they're basically these giant robots who are super, super intelligent, who have made humanity very, very comfortable. And they took over the world, but humans allowed them to, because, you know, I mean, basically, they gave humans devices, and humans were like, cool, and they settled for it. So they
Yeah.
took over the world. So we jump ahead 30 years, and Marvin is now a really bitter old janitor in this high school, and he's lost everything. His marriage is not there. I mean, they're apart now. His daughter is now working for the tech gods. She's working for what's called in the book the Human Progress Project. They're trying to solve the human problem, um, and it's the worst case. It is a worst case scenario for this guy. It's literally his daughter is working for the enemy that he created, and she doesn't want anything to do with him either. So he's in a bad place, and in that bad place, uh, he's basically offered. He ends up coming across this giant hammer, this mystical hammer from a seemingly supernatural origin, and basically told, "Go free the people." So Marvin's entire mission is to basically take this hammer and to destroy the tech gods and free humanity. So that's the entire premise of the book. There's more uh, kind of twists and turns to the story, but that's the basic gist of it.
I really, when I read the first issue, I was like, the thing that caught me was the conversation between the robot and Mosley,
Mm-hmm.
and how to him it was just like, just speaking, what have you, but the robot was trying to speak to him, but it was like they were speaking the same language, but it's inflection, it's lingo, it's things like that that the robot might not be able to comprehend.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might have been my favorite part of the first issue, is that
Mm-hmm.
see of them sitting there, him sitting down, and they just, the minute he starts speaking, it almost feels like they're trying to, it almost feels like they're trying to one up each other, but it's just the robot trying to understand. And because Mosley is almost getting a little ticked off,
Mm-hmm.
and that is almost like the seed of it. And I love that so much. And until you said it, I didn't realize like the Moses kind of let my people go. I don't know why I didn't realize that. You just said it now, and I'm like, yeah, it's like let my people go. Like I didn't think about the Moses part of that at all.
Well, here's the funny part. Like it wasn't planned. You know, I usually the way ideas work with me is I have bits and pieces that I kind of sit on for a while, and I
Hmm.
the Marvin Mosley name and who Marvin Mosley was had been hanging out with me for a long time, and I had different iterations of him, you know, and but it never had to do like there was no magic hammer or any of the tech. That wasn't what it was. You know, the
Hmm.
joke that I always had that he grew out of was, you know, I think it was Dave Chappelle did this, you know, in one of his skits on his old show. Like there was a guy that I remember he was playing a janitor and he's with a guy and the guy's having some crazy like psychedelic experience and the janitor's just there and he looks at the guy looks at Dave and is just like, "Are you an angel?" He's just like, "No, I am high on PCP." And like,
Oh
like
yes, yeah,
that's
I
the
remember
entire
that. Yeah, I
joke.
remember that.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the entire joke. And I just thought like the janitor character is just really funny to me. And like Dave plays it so well. And he was a janitor in Half Baked as well. Like there's
Hmm.
this janitor character, this humble janitor. And I just thought like, man, like there's just something to this guy. Like I know this guy. Um, but I hadn't put together the tech aspect of it yet. So I didn't plan on him being a Moses. I just liked the name. I really didn't. I liked the name Marvin Mosley because it just jumped out at me. It's like that name is I just like that name and I
Hmm.
could see him immediately. But then at some point I was like, oh, I got this idea for text, you know, robots. And that was birthed out of my frustration with tech. And you know, I have 3 kids and you know, I
Right.
have to like you know, I have to police them like I have to like I love technology, but I have to police. I have to spend so much of my time trying to protect my kids from technology and
Yes.
all that goes with it. So I had that frustration and the idea of smashing tech. And then I had Marvin Mosley over here who was just like this angry janitor guy. And I at some point I just thought, what if I put these two things together? Like, huh, okay. And then I started writing it and then I realized it is sort of the Moses story. Like I actually hadn't planned it initially. And then, you know, people are catching it now. Like people are hitting me up. They're like, man, we really like the biblical kind of paradigm thing you're doing. Like that wasn't planned. That literally just kind of happened that way. Like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Well, I don't feel bad then. Okay, good. Thank you.
Cool.
That
Yeah.
helps my self esteem more. I'm gonna be honest, because when you said it, I was just like, yeah, you just caught that, Rip, didn't you? You didn't even you love this comic, but you haven't even thought of it. It's great.
That's good though. That's good. I mean, I like making things that have different levels to them. You
Yeah.
know, I want you to be able. I want someone to be able to enjoy it just from a pure sci-fi, you know, action movie kind of
Hmm.
vibe. But at the same time, you know, I would like it. It it would be nice. I think it's like an extra gift to be able to
Yes.
go in and find all the other things, the other layers that are there. I mean, even with Chew, you know, I was known for doing Easter eggs, like all these little background things and gags and stuff. There are layers to the story that you can go back and reread and get more out of it. You know, I mean, I think of a comic like Watchmen. You know, Watchmen. I
Hmm.
used to keep a copy of Watchmen on my coffee table, and I would just pick it up randomly and just kind of skim through it. And every time I did, I'd find something I never saw before. And I've read this book tons of times. So I try to do that with all of my books. And so yeah, that's cool that you just caught that.
Yeah, it's because I was so into like just the actual like I was digging the whole sci-fi, action adventure part of it and that,
Mm.
but then also that AI thing and the conversation, like I said, was happening. When the hammer came, I was like, oh, here we go, and he just let loose. But then yeah, that the Moses thing like that, like letting my people go. Yeah, kind of like so. Yeah, there are, and this book does have a lot really cool, like really cool layers to it. Is it going to be an ongoing, or is it going to be a mini series, a limited series?
We're planning it. I pitched it initially 5 issues.
Hmm.
I think that's still the plan for now. I do have. I'm still talking to Boom about potentially doing more.
Okay.
It would be a fun story. I think I have enough story. I have in my head. I have 3 arcs planned. So it would be this one, another 5-issue arc, and then another 5 of that. But we'll see.
Okay, cool. So almost like a trilogy in essence. All right,
Yeah,
cool. That
exactly. Again,
which
the action movie, yeah, the blockbuster.
exactly, yeah, that's awesome. That's cool. Now, one thing I've noticed about Boom, and I'm hoping that they rectify this with Mosley. I don't see a lot of merch
Mm-hmm.
on the Boom website. Like I've
Mm-hmm.
looked for certain things from because I feel like Boom is really hitting a stride right now with a lot of their titles. I mean, Something's Killing Children, Grimm, and Mosley. I think of 3 of my favorite comics, and they're Boom comics. But I'm not seeing a lot of merch. So I mean, I'm hoping at some point we get some Mosley merch, a mug. I'm known for my mugs. I mean, if I can get a mug, I'm known for my t-shirts. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm just putting it out there.
I think it's going to happen. I'll have to make a note. I mean, we've talked a bit. I mean, from the beginning when I wrote it, before we even had any of the art, before I brought the artist Sam on board,
Mhm.
I mean, we immediately was like, oh, that hammer is going to be so iconic. Like we got to do something with that hammer. So I think we're going to do something with it. So I'll keep you posted.
I mean, a t-shirt with the hammer, a pen, like an enamel pen. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just throwing stuff out there because I really enjoy merch. Like I enjoy mugs, t-shirts. I have a plethora of t-shirts. Jeez, I have all of the Excellence t-shirts just because it's like one of my favorite comics. I have pins just because I think pins are really cool. Something quick, easy you can put on your bag if you're near Comic-Con, whatever. So yeah, I'm gonna cross my fingers. I'm hoping that there's Boom steps up their merch game because they've got some bangers over there, and
Yeah.
I'd love to wear a t-shirt.
All right.
Now, I mean, with me, my thing is t-shirts, the mugs, they make me feel good. So that's kind of my self-care. As a creative, as a human being, as a parent, as a husband, there's a lot of things in life that are hitting us, unfortunately, left and right. What's something that you do? What's a self-care tip that you do to help keep yourself grounded and keep your mental health there?
Man, that's a great question. I mean, I think I've only started paying attention to this in the last few years.
Mhm.
Because I mean, even on Shoe, man, you know, I was a page a day guy for 8 years. So every day
Mhm.
grinding, grinding, grinding. And I think, you know, it's good to be dedicated, but I think you can kind of be overboard and kind of, I think I was doing it to the detriment of my health.
Yeah.
So I think in the last few years, especially, yeah, I just turned 40 last year.
Huh?
So I think I made it. I made it. Um, so yeah, I think I've just started kind of paying attention in the last few years. So like for me, it's a combination of things, man. It's exercise. I was not, you know, it was just hours and hours of sitting behind the desk and just killing myself.
Mhm.
Um, so exercise, um, trying to eat better, man, because I think that's another one. It's just I was eating a bunch of crap, eating out every day, that kind of thing. So I cook. I've learned how to cook. That has also been a massive help to me, but also my family, like my wife in particular. You know, it's been good for all of us. My kids will complain all day about when my wife cooks. They will never complain when I cook. And I think it's because I might be the better cook. I'm not sure. So I'm just saying. So yeah, those two things. But honestly, like I think, honestly, being completely real, I think above all else, I think faith for me, man, is everything. Like, I mean, I'm very, very committed Christian. So like for me, every day, I try at least every day, read my Bible and kind of set aside some time and just kind of focus and just center. And I think everything flows out of that for me. So I mean, I think it just that there's a balance to it, and I come out of it um, with everything in its proper place, proper perspective. Whether it's how I look and my place in the work, or my
Mhm.
place in the world, or my place in my family, like it puts things in its proper place. So I'd say that's probably the most foundational thing that everything I do is sort of built on top of.
That's actually a really great answer. I mean, from like a health perspective as well, you saying it, and then also to have the faith and that to help you keep balance. Balance is so key
Hmm.
with everything, and a lot of people, it's either one or the other. Like you're just killing
Yeah.
yourself, you're grinding, whether it's you're at your desk and you're writing in your art, or if you're out there doing construction and you're tearing up your body. a lot of people, I want to say, unfortunately, since the pandemic, people started paying attention more to their mental health because you were inside.
Mhm.
You couldn't go outside, so whatever was going on with you, you had to deal with in that bubble.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to see more people are taking care of that and helping it, and the fact that it's for you, it's a combination of things, but it's more about your faith that can help you with so many things because again, it does ground you. It gives you, okay, this is what it is, and you're able to just have those moments, and you come out of it so much better. And to make that a daily routine or some type of regular routine
Mhm.
is great because you have to have something in order to just be a human being. Let's not even put creative or anything, just be a
Right.
human being.
Mhm.
You need those moments. So
Yeah.
thank you very much for sharing that with us. I mean, because it's
Oh, yeah.
very important to be transparent about that. It truly is.
Like what you just said about, people being locked inside. I mean, I
Hmm.
think um, community is another aspect of it, man. I think
Yeah.
you need people. I mean, as much as creatives, especially, and I'm an introvert. I'm very much I love my solitude, and I need it. I need it to work through my ideas and to work through things.
Hmm.
But I've done my best to try to plug in more with community, whether it's like groups, men's groups or church groups or whatever. Like I'm trying to like be more external, and I think it's added so much to me, because other
Yeah.
people see things that you don't sometimes. So yeah, I think that's a big help too.
That's virtue. Yeah. Some people, yeah, you might not see it, but someone can actually say to you, hey, and
Hmm.
it could be someone who may just have seen you at first time, or someone who, a loved one is going, hey, I noticed X, Y, and Z. Is everything okay? And you're like, oh, wait, what?
Hmm.
And then you go and you check and you go, oh, that do that. So that is very important. And to seek it for so long, especially black men, for so long,
Hmm.
it was just take it, walk with, take it, whatever it is, whatever. But now we're seeing that it's killing us, literally killing us.
Yeah. Yep.
With because all of that, it goes into our physical then and everything, and it
Mhm.
hurts the ones around us that we love. So I truly appreciate the fact that you are taking that and you're seeing it and you're going, I have to
Mhm.
be a better person, not just for me, but for my loved ones. That's
Yeah,
very
man.
important, and that's a huge step right there,
Absolutely.
honestly. Now, self-care, doing something for yourself, one of the best things I can think of to do for myself is reading comics. I mean,
Mhm.
look, I'm all over the place with my comics, but I love knowing what creatives and what creators are reading, taking in. What are three comics that you can recommend to people right now?
Okay, well, one of them is it's a fairly recent comic. It's called A Righteous Thirst for Vengeance. It's a Rick Remender comic.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
an Image comic. It is just it's just pure comics, and I just love
Mhm.
it. I mean, it's the craftsmanship of it is just fantastic. So that's one of my favorites recently. I'm actually working through some of my older books right now. Um,
Mhm.
I'm working through Akira because I've never read Akira
Ooh,
all the way through. And
okay.
it's a giant commitment. Like it's been on my shelf for a while, and I'm like, I gotta go through this thing. So
Classy, classy.
yeah, working through Akira, and there's another one that I'm working through. That I've actually never read before. I've read
Mm.
bits and pieces. I've had the first volume for a while, but I got the second one. To One Punch Man, the
Ooh.
manga. Have you read it?
I haven't read the manga. I've watched, I think I watched a season and a half of the anime. I've heard, obviously, everyone will always say that obviously the manga is better. Books always better.
Yeah,
But from just that, I'm like, wow. And I've had people who have said it's one of the best mangas that they've read.
it's hilarious. I mean,
Hmm.
I was very very influenced by manga coming up as well. Like I was a big Akira Toriyama, Dragon Ball Z. I was a
Oh,
big Ramika Takahashi, Ranma and One Half. I was very into humor. I mean, you can see obviously in my work,
yeah.
I like humor a lot. Um, and One Punch Man is funny. It's just it is freaking. I've laughed out loud numerous times on this book, and it's not a lot of books can kind of get me to that place.
Hmm.
And I mean, the artistry is fantastic as well. I mean, the is a beast, but it is freaking hilarious.
It's one of those, like, when I was, because I didn't know what to expect when I was watching the anime. I just thought, oh, One Punch Man, just one punch. I'm like, okay. So I was watching it, and just the look on his face, because every other anime that you know of, when they're getting ready to fight, there's this fierce. I mean, we'll go to the one that everyone will go to
Mhm.
is Dragon Ball Z, the Z
Yeah.
fighters. You got that the angry, and his face is just like, yeah, okay, whatever. And you're
Right.
like, there's no, and it's such a
Right.
difference from everyone else. So when I saw that, I was like, okay. And
Mhm.
just watching it, I was like, this is the I between that and I'll say My Hero Academia. I love how they
Mhm.
kind of break down the superhero.
Mhm.
Because like I love anything that breaks down superheroes. It's just very
Mhm.
like it's not just the usual Marvel or DC. It breaks it down, makes it more human, but you see like these
Mhm.
little things that you wouldn't think of. I love that with that Watchmen, obviously. There was another one that did it with heroes. I'm trying to remember there was something else recently that I've read or watched, and I was like, I love
Mhm.
this because it breaks down um
Mhm.
not the boys, but there's something else.
Mhm.
And I go, if you love superheroes, this is great because it breaks it down. If you hate superheroes, this is great because it breaks them down. It makes it more on a human
Mhm.
level. So either way, it's a win-win.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
what I love about One Punch Man is it's the humor is it's very clever, but it's
Mhm.
also grounded in some nice reality. Like I mean, the whole gag is he's the superhero who's so powerful that he can beat any opponent in one punch, and he's super frustrated and bored because of it.
Yeah,
And it's funny because like everyone's always trying to find out the source of his power, but his response is, "I'll tell you the secret of my power," and he's just like, "I do 100 push-ups a day, 100 sit-ups a day." Like, he's just he's going through an average workout, and everyone's like, that's just average power. You're not gonna get any superpower from that." And his response is just like, but his response is actually very like grounded and real. Like his response is, "There's no other way. Like this is the only way. There
yeah,
is no secret to like fitness or anything like that. You actually just have to do the work,
yeah.
and that's it." And it pisses off everyone he comes across. It's hilarious. It's really
I
good.
remember, I remember when I was watching the anime and he was doing it, and he said his hair started falling out from him training so much. And even that was funny, and I was like, that make, but it explained, but didn't explain everything. And I was like, it makes sense, but it doesn't. But it fit in
Yeah,
that world. It made total sense because
yeah,
sometimes your hair falls out. I mean, it's
right,
you
right.
know what I mean. So even that, and him just showing like him doing the push-ups and everything, and you see like his hair, and I think it like he was telling someone, and someone was just looking at him like, what?
Mhm, mhm. Right.
And I was like, because I didn't know. So I was like, oh, well, he's going to tell you the secret. And he says it. And I'm going, I mean, yeah, like
Yeah.
not every superhero is going to have some type of, radioactive or,
uh,
something, a metagene or something like that. It's just, I worked at it because he
right.
wanted it. So it's almost like,
Right.
yeah, that's his passion and the working out is what did it. But when his hair started falling out,
Right.
I was like,
Yeah.
all right, yeah, it fits
Yeah.
this world. So I'm not going to be mad.
Right. And that's the brilliance of it, is it's such a ridiculous premise, but what he's saying is so profound. He's saying that everyone wants the secret, but no one's willing to work for it. Like
Yeah.
everyone wants to be bitten by the radioactive spider.
Yes.
Nobody wants to do 100 push-ups.
Yeah.
nobody, nobody wants that. So
You
it's stuff like
you'd
that's
rather
great.
you'd rather risk your life being bitten by a radioactive spider. You don't know what kind of spider either. It could already be deadly,
Right.
but then you're adding
Right.
radioactive instead of doing 100 push-ups, which will help you
Right.
in long run. No, I'd just rather
Yeah.
get bit.
Yeah.
I'd rather
That's
get bit.
brilliant. That's brilliant.
I'm like, okay, cool. That's all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, see, now you're making me want to go read and watch it because it's a ridiculous. Because I have the rest of the day, so it's awesome. Yeah, could definitely do
Yeah.
this.
Cool.
So, last thing we're going to talk about, folks. It's in the title. I keep saying this. The Hungry, all caps, bleak food, obviously. So, Robert,
Mhm.
what is a restaurant you love to go to, and what is a dish that you love there?
And there's so again, I'm in Louisiana, so like we're surrounded everywhere. Everything's
Right.
fantastic. But there is a seafood joint. It's right off the interstate, so if you're driving through, you cannot miss it.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Fezzo's. It's spelled Fezzo,
If it's
and
easy.
it is it's fantastic. And they have a dish. There's one dish in particular that I don't go there nearly enough, but I probably shouldn't, to be honest with you, because it's just so like you shouldn't eat this that much. But if you're
Yeah.
driving through from time to time, it's a good treat. They have a dish called the Catfish Festival,
Oh,
and it's crawfish etouffee on rice with but the crawfish etouffee is on top of fried catfish.
oh my
So
God.
it is just heavenly. It is a little piece of heaven come down and landed on your plate. It is just fantastic. Yeah.
Gained 5 pounds just listening to that. All right, great, awesome. I get,
It is so good.
geez, you had me at you had me at catfish. I'm gonna be honest with you, but then you say
Yeah.
this the way you said it was layered. I was like,
Oh man, it's just wrong.
oh, I'm here in Jersey, so I guess I'll have pizza. Yes, that's what I'll have to question. That's what we're known for is pizza. So I'll just go with pizza. We're
Is
not.
there anyone? Is there anyone there that has like authentic Louisiana food? Because there's always one guy.
Uh, I think to really get something good, I'd have to go to New York. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Okay.
And New York is maybe by train, maybe about an hour and 20 minutes, so that's not too bad.
All right.
So I could do that, but I would rather, I'm not a huge seafood fan. I don't eat a lot of seafood, but when I do, I want to enjoy myself. I want to just immerse myself in it. And just hearing you say etouffee just made me go, yes, oh man, just oof. There was a
Yeah.
place in New York it was a seafood place I really enjoyed, but unfortunately they closed due to the pandemic. And they
Mm.
were right next to a comic book shop too.
Oh man.
It's yeah. So yeah, all right.
Oh,
I'll just have to tough
sad.
it up. I'll just have to tough it up. It's Friday. Just have to
Yeah.
tough it up. Drink some more tea. I'll read some more comics. Apparently, I'll go through puberty one more time because my voice just cracked. So I'm gonna go through that as well, and we'll just deal with it. That's life. So, folks, look, Mosley is 2 issues in, correct?
Yep.
All right. So you have a great starting point. Jump into this one. It has this dynamic story with the AI and this man trying to remedy something that he was partially the cause of. And you know what? I see this in my head. Now that you say it's like a blockbuster, I see it in my head as a series or a movie, and I see either an older Will Smith or Ernie Hudson. And I
Well,
love Ernie Hudson.
I pictured. I mean, when I wrote it, I was thinking Denzel. I mean, 100%. Like older
I could,
Denzel.
yeah, I could see.
Um,
I could just mad at. I got every last cases on all of you. I got everything. Just pointing at everybody. Everybody just getting that Denzel point in there, and just tapping
yeah.
on the table. I'm angry.
Yeah.
Just
No,
yeah,
I mean, he's really good. I mean, physically, he's probably not right for the role at all. But I mean, when I was writing it, Denzel plays characters that are fallen really, really well. Like
yeah,
that kind of like human. I'm thinking of like Denzel in Fences. If you ever saw
yeah.
that, he's like the horrible dad who's just
Hmm.
kind of an ass who's just you know you kind of want him to redeem himself. He's just that likable guy, and
Yeah.
I've never seen him be in this kind of movie, like a guy with a giant hammer smashing things. I don't know.
That might be it. I could definitely see it. He's sitting at the table and then you talking to the robot. He's like, I ain't got to like you. What does it say? I got to like you. I ain't got to like you. Did am I talking to you? That's you know what? You may have turned me on. You may have turned me. I still thinking about like Ernie Hudson because I just got a soft in my heart. I
Right,
mean Ernie
right.
Hudson I do, but I could see him. I ain't got to like you. I ain't got to I put food on the table. Don't I? Yeah, I could definitely. You know what? I'm gonna think about this and I'm gonna come back to it.
All right,
I
all right,
will. So,
all right.
folks, look, Mosley, please go check this out. It's very timely that it came out during the discussions about AI and such like that. But it's just a really good comic and it's fun. Sometimes comics, like you were saying, sometimes a comic can be very heady. It could be it's all these things can happen. A lot of times we don't get fun heady comics. This one it has a heady subject matter, but it also is fun. And when the hammer comes in, I mean, it just everything. The minute I saw the hammer, I was like, it's all out the window now. It's all out the window. And I love the interaction between the father and the daughter. I love how he's like, oh, I don't want this for you. It's perfect. I absolutely love it. There's only 2 issues in, folks, so you've got plenty of time to catch up in there. And while you're checking that out, go check out Chew. It's a wonderful mix of really interesting story, some humor, phenomenal art, and just this conspiracy story as well. You've got, again, many layers all wrapped up in one, and it's fun. Don't forget the fun. Friday fun. That's what we're going to tell. It's Friday fun. So everyone, I want you to just give a huge round of applause, again, not too loud because I don't want your neighbors being mad and they call the cops on you for disturbance, what have you, for Rob Guillory. Thank you so very much, sir, for coming on. Truly appreciate it. Do you have any parting words for the folks?
No, this is great, man. And thank you for for having me on. And we'll have to do this again. This is a lot of fun.
Definitely will, sir. Thank you so very much, folks. As always, do the best you can with what you got, because in the end, that's all that you get. And as you know, it takes a second for this to end when I hit the button. So you're just going to get a little shoulder shake because it's random.